Mike Callan here. I want to make a quick video. Saw a question on Facebook, and it really drove my attention here. I'm going to actually grab my phone and read this. But gentleman had a question. A great employee is thinking of coming back to our company, but he says he wants to be able to stop for coffee each morning. Gentleman went on to say that he didn't want this employee to stop, but what do you think, or would you allow this? Well, the answer to that is absolutely not. You would not want to make that exception. When we're going out to build a business, in my opinion, is we want to go out and define each role and not necessarily put a person's name on it. So the first part is, as we define that role, we are going to go in and create a standardizing operation procedure, SOP. And that's going to be the foundations to everything in the business. So whether it's a crew lead, a technician, the standard operating procedures for the crew itself, which I'm going to suggest is a morning coffee break, is definitely out of the question unless it's a state mandated break or a lunch break where they're on their own time. But what I'm going to suggest is you do not allow a new hire to come back because they want to be able to stop for a coffee break on your pay. That tells me right there immediately that they probably are not a good fit, and they may be the best technician or lawn mowing crew leader you've ever had, but maybe they're just really not on the right seat on the right bus if they're trying to come back. There's a reason why this gentleman left on his own, or you got rid of him. So I would not make exceptions to get a new employee in. And if they had already gone and left your company, now are coming back, there's a reason. But on a high level outside of the initial question is the goal of when we start this business for predictable results is we really want to go in and create each position with nobody's name on it and explain what the role is and the responsibilities. And then once we've created that organizational chart with all the roles, we go out and hire to the specific skill set and a cultural fit. If part of your culture is not stopping to get coffee in the morning, which I hope it isn't, this gentleman right off the bat is a bad cultural fit. So when you're going to make a new hire, you want to make sure the gentleman is a cultural fit. So as we're continuing this process, so we built out this organizational chart with each position and roles and responsibilities and skill set and a cultural fit. We've gone and hired these people. Now, if Dave leaves, let's say, and we have to replace him, we haven't built a specific set of rules or skill set around Dave. We built it for the actual crew and the production rates that need to happen. So that's the first thing. But the next thing is where I find it really, really dangerous here. If you get into this mindset, I'm hoping you have a standardized production rate estimating system. So based on how many minutes or hours you think it's going to take, or eventually, this is the ideal, is based on production rate on square footage, linear length, number of small, medium, and large units, whatever that is. As soon as we start to get away from a process and system that's built on estimating of production, we're hurting ourselves. So it doesn't matter how good your budget is or how good your budgeted time is or your pricing, because all that is foundationally built on your estimating system. So your foundational blocks are building up. So your estimating system is going to create a budgeted time, a price, and hopefully a cost before profit. So you know your projected net margin. And if your production rate based estimating system has a standard operating procedure that doesn't include morning stops to the coffee shop, you're going to be in big trouble. So it's interesting. We had a gentleman when we did piece rate pay in Callahan's that always complained that he couldn't get his budgeted time to the east side of town. Our shop was on the west side of town. And basically what he did is he took 5 minutes off the normal route and went to Dunkin' Donuts, grabbed his 5 minutes of coffee and got back on. But what inevitably it did is it created a compounding effect. So it was a 2-person crew. So 5 minutes driving there, 5 minutes at Dunkin' Donuts, another 5 minutes back onto the route that we had already predefined and systematized. But basically that 5, 5, and 5 is 15 minutes times 2 guys. He lost 30 minutes, of budgeted time. So if his first job that he got to was budgeted for 30 minutes, inevitably he was literally a whole job behind before he even started. So coffee breaks instituted by the company, absolutely not. It's actually pretty ludicrous in my mind. And since you weren't going along with that, I think you need to stick where your guns are. But you need to create a standardized process with accountability, throw some GPS in the truck, and it's not antagonistic. You're not beating up those crews. You want to work together as a team for productivity with rewards to create the right behaviors and the right decision making. If this guy's coming in to start a new job and that's his first question, absolutely bad cultural fit, and he's going to erode your bottom line profits. So we need to define the roles with structure and what's included in each one of those roles. And then we go to hire them. We want to make sure there's a cultural fit. And then we have a standardized production rate based estimating system that foundationally builds the success financially for that business. And through accountability and transparency, we force those crews to buy into that, or not even really force them. We get them to buy into it as part of our culture. And we've got that alignment. We're driving production with quality. So it's kind of a 2 to 3 step process, but we need to have those conversations with those crews that when they go to the extra stop to Dunkin' Donuts to grab that coffee, that they've in essence lost 30 minutes of production in a very easy base example, probably more than that. And let's just say your cost to operate was, say, $30 an hour. It costs you that to operate. That crew's cost you $15 every time they've got out and lost non-billable production. So let's just say we've got a 40-week season. So 15 times 40 weeks, 600 times 5 days a week. That coffee stop is costing you $3,000 an unbillable stop by them literally spending 5 minutes driving there, 5 minutes in the drive-thru, 5 minutes back. Now, what happened in our company that was even worse is the gentleman not only did that, but it put him 5 to 10 minutes behind, and he hit rush hour traffic, which caused an extra 45 to 50 minutes of delay on top of what we'd already budgeted for the time. So it's very interesting to see how one exception for a really good quote unquote employee can literally start to erode your bottom line. And I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to take $3,000 of my profit basically and donate it to a crew to go out and get coffee in the morning. It's probably a hell of a lot cheaper to go out and go to Dunkin' Donuts and bring them coffee every morning if that's something they absolutely need. But I'd recommend having it in your handbook that's not part of it. A great person to talk to is Jason Cupp if you're doing that. He's an excellent gentleman that handles HR and handbooks. But I would define the expectation and make sure you have some GPS in those trucks. I got a question. Randy Ward wants to know, can you share your defined roles at used at Callahan's Lawn Care for Mo Crew, etc.? Yeah, so actually, Randy, good seeing you too, buddy. But basically the defined roles that we broke out at Callahan's was the owner was the top. That was myself. Underneath it, I had a gentleman that ran the day-to-day operations. We called him our operations coach because the operations coach, in our opinion, was more of a teaching and learning, not beating the guys down or the girls down. It was a teaching moment. So it was our operations coach. So the owner, the operations coach. Above the crews, we had, we called them head crew leaders. It was more of a management role, but they still did some in the field work. So it was basically an evolution from a crew leader to a head crew leader, but they still in that role could get on the road and do things and do some management as well. So it was a combination of moving up to that coach. Obviously, we had the sales and kind of the office as well. But if we're talking just in the field, we had the crew leader, and then we had the technician. We always ran 2 people crews. If we ran a large property, 30, 40 acres, we'd have two-man crews come in the morning and then disperse their crews and build a route density around that initial stop. But we always believe that a 2-person crew is most effective for production. When you get into a 3-person crew, there's a lot of that extra non-billable overhead labor on that truck, as well as inefficiencies. It seems like that third guy's always slowing down, not to grab the extra weed whacker, blower, or worst case scenario, you find him in the back of the property smoking a cigarette. Now, where a third person on the crew can make sense, though, is in your south or southwest market, where they may be doing bed maintenance while the other 2 people are mowing, or out in the southwest where you're going out like Scottsdale or Phoenix, Gilbert, where you may have more landscape maintenance. It's not necessarily like the north or northeast market that I'm in. So there is some exceptions, but I would say as a rule of thumb, when we work with companies, in my company, the 2-person crew was exceptionally more profitable. Scott, I use Paychex for human resources to set up handbook, so I know it's legal. Absolutely. Great. And Paychex is great. They're actually located up here in Rochester, New York. This is their founding place. Here, Tom Golisano, one hell of a company, and quite the philanthropist too as well. But yeah, Paychex is a good resource as well. But if you're looking for industry specific, the person I do recommend is Jason Cupp, because he does know the nuances of our industry and he checks with the local and state laws. So Jason's done some handbook work for me and has never steered me wrong. But yeah, Paychex is also a very great option there as well. So comments and questions dropping below, but I know as we're starting to get into the crazy season here, I'm going to try to post on a daily basis. I've been running around crazy. Just got back from Savannah, Georgia with Quality Driven Software, hanging out with Randy and Martha Ward. Good time catching up with you guys. Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire, Scott Howard of SA, Debbie Sardone of Cleaning Business Fundamentals. You name it. All the heavy hitters were in Savannah last week and shared a lot, but I learned just as much. So you still got some time to get out of your comfort zone and go out and outlearn your competition for the season gets crazy. And speaking of which, actually, shameless plug, March 9th and 10th, if you use Service Autopilot, you're looking to use Service Autopilot, the Simple Growth 2-day implementer event that's usually held live. We've done one in New York, Tampa, Dallas, a couple other places. We're actually doing that live remote on the computer from your office. So 9th and 10th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you're too busy to see it, you can actually sign up and get 6 months of the recorded 16 hours of workflow and training how to set Service Autopilot from the ground up. So huge value there. If you're on my email list, you'll be seeing that coming out the next day or two. And we'll do some Facebook Live so we can Q&A what we're going to be covering. But that's going to be a massive event that if you're going to grow and scale a service business, lawn care, home cleaning, we're going to break down Service Autopilot to kind of shrink the size of that system down to 5 to 6 screens of success for optimized workflow and productivity. And then you can go out and delegate that and either work on it like Michael Gerber and not in it, or in my instance, becoming that absentee owner. So pretty interesting just to see a lot of people using that platform and how they've used that 5 to 6 screens of success to delegate and create predictable systems. But the question today is, define those roles. Don't make an exception for a new hire, especially the one that is left and come back. And then foundationally, before you do anything, you want to build the foundational pieces, right, from your production rate-based estimating system to the estimating, the follow-up, and then the delegation of the jobs with clarity and transparency with budgeted time and cost before profit. And if we're not sticking to those systems the estimate was built on, you may be a very profitable company, but if you got 3 or 4 crews out and you've just got one coffee break over that 40-week season, and the example I showed you on the phone here, it was a $3,000 bottom line hit because somebody wanted to stop for coffee every morning. So to answer your question directly, no, absolutely do not make that exception. And I don't think this gentleman's a good cultural fit by the sounds of it either. So we'll see you tomorrow on Facebook Live.